In the wake of President Obama's speech about what America and its allies are going to do to fight ISIS throughout the Middle East and that region, there's been a lot of media attention on it, even on the Young Turks network. A lot of talk about what sort of threat ISIS poses. And from my point of view, I feel like there has been very little critical thought applied in the media. They're pretty much, they're making them seem like they're Al-Qaeda with mutant Omega powers. Like they're coming for you in New York City tomorrow. And certainly Fox News is saying ISIS is coming across the southern border, or having Rick Perry on to say it, which is patently absurd. But if from the American point of view, that's not the case. The media has not been overhyping it. If anything, they have been underhyping the threat that ISIS poses against American interests and America specifically. So here's some surveys that have been done. This is a YouGov poll talking about what Americans think about the media coverage of ISIS. 27% of respondents say they've been very closely following the news, which seems optimistic, but we'll give them that, with 41% following it somewhat closely. That, by the way, is higher percentages than are following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is a huge international problem right now, and the police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, which was a massive story, but apparently ISIS has captured the imagination of America. Now, in terms of the coverage and what they think about the coverage, 1/3 of Americans said the media's coverage of the threat posed by ISIS has been about right. But of those who don't think so, nearly twice as many said that the media were underplaying the threat than we're overstating it. There's been round-the-clock coverage of how terrible ISIS is, and the media war machine is gearing up to send our armed forces back over there the same way they were sent to fight the Taliban and to fight Saddam Hussein's regime. They want it more than anything. And so they've been willing to, at the very least, exaggerate the threat of ISIS in terms of what it can do domestically in the United States. And the American people, they watch this coverage and they hear it, and what they think at the end of it is they're underplaying the threat. We just went through this with Al-Qaeda, with Saddam Hussein, with the Taliban, and I guess you get a couple of years where you don't have 100,000 troops stationed in some Middle Eastern state, and America's ready to do it all again. Look, speaking totally selfishly, if we get over there, there's going to be a lot of news for me to report. For the media, it's certainly good for ratings, but it's terrible for the American people. It's terrible for the economy. It's terrible for our armed forces. And the American people seem so enthusiastic about getting involved in war again. I mean, that doesn't mean that right now they support sending in ground forces or, sending in 100,000 troops to battle ISIS in Syria or anything like that. But they think that we're underplaying the threat. We're not underplaying the threat. ISIS is a threat in the Middle East. I mean, they've shown that they can take out the Iraqi army in limited engagements. They can even fight the Peshmerga of the Kurdish military. But the idea that tomorrow they're going to be launching terrorist attacks inside the United States or invading through Mexico, that is ridiculous. We're not underhyping it, okay? Maybe someday they will be that threat, and at that time, that's what we'll report. But you can't go out there looking for enemies, looking for boogeymen. It's disappointing. It's a disappointing day in America.